Welcome to Khali Yoga Center. My name's Ian and I'm working with Chris today, and we're here to explore with you halfway lift. So let's get into it. So Chris is going to come turning sideways. He's going to come into his halfway lift, and we'll give the general form of the pose first. So both of his feet are on the ground. He's in this like halfway folded position with his spine extending forward. And then as we get into some more specifics here, Chris's feet are about hips width apart, and his feet are parallel here, so both feet on 12 o'clock. Then his legs are, like the knees are just slightly bent here, and his pelvis is on top of the legs. And then the spine is working straight out from the pelvis, and his head is in line with the spine. Now, depending on your body type and your level of flexibility here, some folks do halfway lift with their hands on the ground. Chris has his hands up on his shins or knees, which is perfect for his body. And you can even see with his fingertips on the ground there, he can still affect this lengthening in his spine. And now the energy, the action that we're creating in the pose, it all begins down at the foundation. So Chris's toes are spread out on the mat. He's got this grounded foundation. The ball mounds of the big toes are pressing down, and the inner ankles turn back. The heels are pressing real firmly into the ground, giving him this anchor point from which he can lift up. Then the outer shins are pulling in, the leg muscles are hugging to the bones, and then his hips, as we move up, his hips are tilting back, which creates this lengthening in the lower part of his spine. Then from the spine going forward, there's this full extension. The side bodies pull forward, creating length there. And then as we get into the chest and the ribs, Chris's low ribs are drawing in toward the center, knitting together. And that creates an expansion here at the mid-back. So now let's look at halfway lift with some of the ways that integrity is often lost when we're just moving through the pose and not really exploring these nuanced alignment things. So starting down at the feet and the legs, often the knees will lock out in halfway lift, and you can see when Chris's knees lock out, the weight goes more back into the heels, and it's no longer evenly distributed in the feet, which we lose power when that happens. The heels are only carrying the weight, so we're not getting the full purchase of the ground here. So Chris can easily just bend the knees a touch, and you can see that also affects the pelvis. Then coming up to the pelvis, often there will kind of be like a tucking under or a misalignment in the hips, so that tilting back of the pelvis creates length in the low back. And if he weren't doing that, as he kind of tucks his hips under a bit, you can kind of collapse your chest for a sec, Chris. So this like the tucking under the pelvis then starts to affect the rest of the spine. There's this like collapsed energy down, versus when Chris tilts the pelvis back, then he can lengthen through the spine, and then the natural current of energy moves through to create this extension of the spine. And one other place that we often lose the alignment is up in the head. Often folks are trying to look forward here. They're kind of craning the neck as they pull forward, and that both overextends the front of the neck and the throat, and also creates some compression back here at the back of the neck. So as Chris lengthens the sides of the neck, draws the chin toward the chest, you can see that extends the line of the neck and creates this forward moving energy through the crown of the head. And now, as I said, depending on the level of flexibility in your body, often tightness in the hamstrings or tension in the lower back will make it difficult for the spine to lengthen out if the hands are trying to be all the way on the ground. So as I said, Chris can create that length here, but for some folks that isn't accessible. So Chris can start just by walking his hands up onto his shins. That creates some more lift. And then for some folks, it'll feel even better to bring the hands up higher onto the thighs. And even that pressing of the hands into the thighs can give you a bit more power from which you can lengthen out through the spine. So the hands don't necessarily have to stay on the ground. They don't have to be on your shins, but it's a matter of creating the alignment that works best for your body and meeting your body where it is to affect the most power in your authentic expression of the pose. Thanks for joining me and Chris here at Khali Yoga Center and exploring halfway lift today, the form of the pose, the alignment, the action moving through it. And check out some of our other videos we've got. We explore a lot of these poses that can give you access to a more fulfilled and powerful practice.